Hello friends, in this video, let's talk about why your face struggles to move while you are recovering from facial paralysis or any other kind of paralysis also. I see a lot of patients who try so hard to just move their face or else their hands or else their leg while they get paralyzed. But there are some critical mistakes that I also observe when they are doing this practice, which I would like to highlight in this video. This video will make you understand the importance of understanding your muscles, understanding the feedback loop that is the core behind developing any movement pattern, and this understanding will help you to do your exercises in the right way. So if you are someone who is suffering from Bell's palsy, facial paralysis, stroke or else spinal cord injury due to which your body has got paralyzed, then this video is definitely for you because you are missing out on some important details that you must know about. Let's get started. When you suffer from paralysis, there is a disruption in the entire circuit system of the body. Your body also works like a circuit, an electric circuit, from where there is a power source, from where the movements come and the movement happens. This movement is then perceived, goes as a sensory feedback, gives and feedback to the brain, and brain adjusts accordingly and comes back. Here, there is an equal importance of your sensory system and your motor system, which is your action system. Whenever you are able to understand the sensations properly, that's where you would be able to send right signals to the brain, the right information to the brain, where the brain will process it, and after that processing, the right kind of information will come back. Now, in different health conditions, there are different faults in the circuit system. For example, let's say when you have stroke, the problem is in the brain. The problem is in the source of electric supply altogether. The way from where the initiation of the movements is happening is being disrupted. Whereas when you suffer from a Bell's palsy or else a peripheral nerve injury like a brachial plexus injury or radial nerve injury or else any kind of nerve injury, the problem is majorly at the wiring level. At the same time, when you have some sensory deficit, for example in a spinal cord injury where you are not able to get the sensations to collect the information through the form of sensation and you are not able to take it to the brain in the right way, at that time also there is a disruption in the entire system due to which you are not able to move the movements well. That's why whenever we as neuro-rehabilitation physiotherapists work with our patients, we ensure that we align back the sensory information system, the processing system which is brain, and the motor system which is the reactive system or else the movement system all together should work in synchronization to ensure that the right movements are happening. But there are some critical mistakes that you might make during this process because of lack of understanding of this. What are these 3 mistakes? Let me tell you. So the first mistake that you will or you are likely to make is you focus a lot on the movement and less on the activation. What do I mean by that? What is a movement? Movement you usually correlate with a function. For example, am I able to raise my hand? Am I able to raise my eyebrows? Am I able to raise my cheeks? These are movements. Your brain understands it in a direct manner and it correlates with a function. Well, understanding of this and practice of this is very important. But before you start the practice of this, the activation of the movement is something that you miss out on. So what is activation? Activation is an understanding of from where the movement is beginning, from where the force is coming, from which muscles the power is coming, which muscles are getting activated first, which muscles are getting activated later, and how the sync of movements are happening. Usually, due to lack of understanding of this, you end up forcing a movement where you might gain some movement, but these patterns will not be the right pattern, which eventually make in the form of spastic contractures or else in case of Bell's palsy, synkinesis. When this happens, the second mistake that you will end up doing will be you will practice these movements over and over again. Let me give you an example. Whenever you are trying to smile when you have got Bell's palsy, since these muscles are not strong enough to move, what these facial muscles end up doing, they start taking help and activating other muscles here as well, because your brain is forcing a movement to happen. When you do this over and over and over again, it forms in a form of an habit. A neuroplastic change happens, and that turns up into a new learned movement pattern. Similarly, in stroke, when you are not able to move your hand, what you end up doing is you try to lift your hand using a compensatory technique, which is using your body. So whenever you will try to lift your hand, you will lift in this way, versus the natural pattern is a straight lift of this hand. Since the muscles are not strong enough to do it, you're repeatedly practicing doing this again and again, which develops into a format of a spastic deformity. So that's the second biggest mistake that people make when they suffer from paralysis. And the third mistake that people usually do is they either overdo the exercises or underdo the exercises. They don't do the right amount of exercises that they need to do for their recovery, which eventually has a direct link with your outcome. That's why working on all these three corrections is very important, and in the later stage of this video, I'm going to explain how you can actually work on activation, what is the right quantity of movements that you should do, and what is too much, what is too little, and how to focus on the right patterns, avoiding the wrong compensatory pattern. So, we saw that there are three important reasons or mistakes that commonly happen which leads to late recovery in paralysis, be it facial paralysis or stroke or even spinal cord injury. Now let me tell you three important things that you should always keep in mind while working on your recovery. Let's get started. So the first thing you should always keep in mind is start with state of relaxation. At the same time, focus on relaxation practices. Now, when your body is paralyzed, that doesn't mean that it is relaxed. In fact, the muscles and the joints which are near to the affected area, they will be more tense. The opposite side of the body will also be more tensed because it is trying to compensate for all the movements that you have lost on the affected side. That's the reason working on relaxation is very critical. Practices like breathing exercises, massages, at the same time doing exercise in a meditative state helps to keep the muscles relaxed and focus on the right activation pattern. So always remember, start your practice with breathing practices, relaxation techniques so that your muscles are calmed down. Here the idea is to inhibit unnecessary contraction over stimulating or activating unnecessary contractions. The next thing that you should always keep in mind is start with passive exercises over any kind of active exercises. When your muscles are paralyzed, they are at 0 stage initially, maybe max it will be at 1 or 2 stage, which are the grades of strength. Now, this strength suggests that these muscles are not capable to move independently against gravity. So, if you force them to move against gravity or force them to contract very strongly, these muscles will not be capable of doing that, where your brain will try to send more and more signals and try to take compensatory methods to enable a movement to happen, which will eventually lead to wrong or compensatory movement patterns. This is what exactly happens in synkinesis and even the contractures or deformities or wrong patterns that an individual experiences or develops in their stroke recovery as well. That's why when you do passive exercises, what happens is you are using your sensory system, you're using your proprioceptors to first learn the right technique, the right movement pattern. There is no muscle overload at this stage, and muscle can genuinely focus on what is the right directions of movement that he or she needs to do. Next, that you should always keep in mind is on your dosage of movement. Overdoing of movement will lead to injury. Underdoing of movement will lead to no neuroplastic changes. That's why optimum movement repetition is something which is very crucial, and that's where your expert can help you. and expert decision making on what is the right kind of repetition for the particular action, at what duration of the timeline in the day one should do the actions or practices plays a very critical role. Remember, if you underdo the exercises, proper neuronal synapses will not be formed and you will not develop the right movement pattern. At the same time, if you overdo the movement, then you will develop compensatory techniques. That's the reason why with lots of practice you end up learning wrong movement patterns, and with less practice you don't get the required results. That's where moderation is the key. Always remember, keep to make small set of exercises with very minimal repetition, and you can practice that more often throughout the day in order to avoid overstrain on these muscles. Your muscles which are paralyzed are fragile, they are weak. Even though they are tensed, they are weak. They can get into injury, spasms, strains, sprains, etc. That's why it's very critical to make sure that they work in the right direction. So these are the 3 reasons why your movements don't easily come back, and if they do come, they come in a wrong pattern, and 3 ways with which you can work on the right movement pattern development. I hope this video helps you. Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section below. At the same time, your challenges that you are facing in the comment section below, so that we can read it and guide you further on your recovery. On that note, I'll end this video here and I'll see you in another video. Thank you.